Hi, I'm Josh, Public Affairs Officer at the NRLA, and today we'll be looking ahead to the upcoming budget. Landlords, the budget could have wide-reaching implications, impacting everything from taxes to local housing allowance rates and so much more. Today, we'll be going over the headline policies we want to see announced when Rachel Reeves stands up in the Commons on the 26th of November. First up, capital gains tax. Ever since Alistair Darling cut capital gains rates to 18% in 2008, there have been calls to align the rates of CGT with those of income tax. This is not something that the NRLA opposes in and of itself. However, increasing CGT rates from 24% to 40 or even 45% would severely impact investment in the PRS at a time of supply crisis. That is why it's essential that any equalisation in CGT rates comes alongside two key changes. The first is the introduction of an annual investment income allowance, deferred until the sale of the asset. To give an example of how this would work, imagine you purchase a property for £100,000 and sell it for £160,000 after 10 years. Under an annual allowance of 3%, the taxable gain would be £25,600, with the tax bill being £10,240. Under the current capital gains tax regime, the tax bill in this example would be £12,000. Crucially, such a mechanism would also reward long-term property investment, as the longer an individual holds a property, the greater the allowance, thereby encouraging longer-term lets. The second change involves the extension of business asset rollover relief to residential property. Occasionally, businesses have to sell one asset to fund the purchase of a new one or to improve an existing asset they already own. Most businesses can do this without triggering capital gains tax, however landlords typically cannot. This means landlords are disincentivised from selling poorly performing assets and freeing up that capital which could be used to fund new homes or improvements to existing homes. Extending this relief would mean landlords are freer to sell property and reinvest that capital back into the PRS. Equalising capital gains tax rates without implementing these changes would have a disastrous effect on investment in the private rented sector, and this is something we have made clear in our submission to the Chancellor. Next, investing in energy efficient homes. The government plans to increase the minimum EPC rating of private rented properties from the current E to a C by 2030 for all tenancies, with a £15,000 cost cap for these works. We all want tenants to have safe and warmer homes. However, the current tax regime creates no incentive for landlords to invest in energy efficiency improvements, making it harder for those landlords of older properties most in need of those improvements to fund energy efficiency works. In our submission to the Chancellor, the NRLA proposed making investments in energy efficiency improvements deductible against income tax, much like an NRLA membership is currently. We also put forward a graduated cap on investments in energy efficiency that is proportional to the house price and rental value of the property, as opposed to the current proposed flat cap of £15,000. Finally, we move to local housing allowance, also known as LHA. In the midst of the housing supply crisis, tenants in receipt of LHA are struggling the most to access the private rented sector. With costs rising for landlords, only 2.5% of PRS properties listed in England between April and October 2024 were affordable for people on housing benefit. With LHA rates currently frozen, the NRLA made restoring this to at least the 30th percentile of market rents a key ask in our budget submission. Doing so would lift 75,000 children and 125,000 adults out of poverty, as well as lessen the strain on local council homelessness services. This is why we have included this in our budget asks, alongside the recent letter on LHA that we coordinated with groups representing tenants, letting agents, landlords, homelessness charities and others. What would you like to see announced in the budget? Head to the NRLA website to keep informed and sign up to our webinar on the 28th of November, where we'll be exploring what the budget means for landlords and the PRS.